Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon when you're watching this webinar. Once again, very excited to share some information with my colleagues and friends at Fremont Unified Schools. Again, this is Dave Nagel. This is webinar 1B. Hopefully you've had a chance to watch the introductory webinar on the overview as the why we prioritize standards. And now we have a chance to go a little bit deeper, specifically looking at an example where we will practice prioritizing in math. Again, just a little bit about my background. Specifically, what I want to share to everyone on these webinars is my entire career was spent as a middle and high school teacher and administrator, specifically working from a teacher level to an administrator level at the building and then overseeing some things at the district in terms of prioritizing standards and developing quality common formative assessments from Larry Ainsworth's common formative assessment work, which I've had the honor and privilege to present now over the course of the last 12 years as well. So the background and expertise that I'm bringing in and experience comes from working with many districts, specifically at the middle and high school level, that have gone through this process of prioritization, which is critical for a cohesive set of standards and focused areas in any course discipline, but specifically for this one, we'll talk about math. And again, to remind everybody from my opening point in the first webinar, a constant struggle all teachers face is our desire to make sure that we can teach everything that we can, that we must, and teach it well with the limited time frame that we have. It's always going to be a challenge, and specifically one at the secondary level. Excuse me, hopefully you have your working handout. So same one from the first webinar. This time we're just going to focus on the webinar related to 1B for math teachers. So by the end of this webinar, we're still addressing the first two success criteria points, the critical rationale for developing a solid prioritized list of standards for your course or department, and be able to list and apply the elements used in developing prioritized standards. But hopefully this example will give you a chance to develop a list of prioritized standards for some upcoming units this subject or this school year within your subject matter, specifically math. So again, as a review, our criteria for developing a quality list of priority standards: endurance, readiness, and leverage. First, what will stand the test of time. Secondly, what is critical for students to know from 7th to 8th grade math as they move from pre-algebra to algebra, as they move from algebra into geometry. And then leverage. What are some of those, perhaps at times, the standards of mathematical practice, which are critical for students to understand, not just in math, but how that relates to other subject matters when they need to be precise in science, when they need to use estimate in science, just as one example when we look at those. And then finally, the external exam. And what we're looking at there is not teaching to the test, but if we know the format, for example, in Smarter Balance, we know that some concepts are assessed more heavily. We're just making sure our students are as well prepared as they can be for that, as that's how they're measured across the state, California, as our external assessment, and certainly nationally, and now with next generation assessments internationally. So we'll look at a specific example. You also have this in your handout. Which of these could be the priority out of these standards? Give an informal argument of the formulas for circumference of a circle, area of a circle, volume of a cylinder, pyramid, and cone, and use dissection arguments, Cavalier's principle, and informal limited arguments. Identify the shapes of two-dimensional cross-sections of three-dimensional objects, and identify three-dimensional objects generated by rotations of the two-dimensional objects. As we've worked with teachers, as I've done this example many times, most teachers have said that when we look at these two standards, we could identify the shapes of the two-dimensional cross-sections and identify the three-dimensional objects by giving an informal argument for the formulas of the circumference of a circle, area of a circle, etc. That we can teach B4 through A1. And again, this is where, as math teachers, if we're talking science examples or English examples, we have to have some honest discourse around this. There's never going to be 100% agreement. But I think one of the conversations that always comes up with is many standards, how do we determine what to prioritize? A key element is, could we teach one of the standards through the other one? And not that we might not need to hit it several times, but there's a really good chance in this example that we would be able to do so. Hopefully that gives you just a little bit of an overview and a little bit of the rationale with a specific math example for you to consider beginning to develop a list of prioritized standards for your specific teaching unit, or teaching units the rest of this year in math, around what are some of the standards that when you look at them, if we really focus on that, more instructionally, deeper level assessments, we can address things that are within that other one and teach them concurrently, but have a more focus on what's more of a priority. As always, if you have questions, thoughts, anything at all, please email me at dave.nagel@corwinlearning.net. And as I've included here, as I will at the end of every webinar, my email as well as my cell phone number. I've had folks that have sent me an email and said, hey, I would like to have a discussion when I have a one-on-one or in a group. Please feel free anytime to reach out and do that. As always, I'm very excited to continue the dialogue with any of you, whether it's through email or a voice conversation. So please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.